Hello everyone, it's Heather Blythe from Southern Cross Cruises, and today I thought I'd do something completely different and have a look at the Explorer of the Seas, which is a mega cruise liner from the Royal Caribbean line, which is sailing into Australia in November 2015. Now, this ship is special because she is the biggest cruise liner to cruise into Australian waters and be stationed in Australia over our cruise season. So let's dig in and have a look to see what we can expect. She is the owner of the Explorer of the Seas. She's in the stable of the Royal Caribbean line. Basically, she is a massive ship and she carries just under 4,000 passengers. So presently we have the Royal Caribbean line here at the moment, and they're carrying around about 2,000 passengers. So if you've been on one of those ships and you love the buzz and everything that happens on board, then you will love the Explorer of the Seas, because everything is just bigger and better and more fantastic, if that's possible. So she's also having a $1 million refurbish before she hits our shores in November 2015. So it's nothing nicer than being on a ship that's had a complete refurb. Everything's neat, tidy, clean, and just looks fantastic. So let's have a look at what to expect on the Explorer of the Seas when she arrives. Now, all the regular offenders are on board this ship. You have the world famous promenade deck, which Royal Caribbean do so well. On these ships, basically the promenade deck is an entire deck from stern to bow with shops, cafes, little bars and pubs and meet-up place, ice creameries, you name it, everything on here. It's like a shopping mall, but it's floating at sea. It's absolutely phenomenal, and they are just, the wow factor that these promenades have is just amazing. So they'll have street parades that head up and down here. You've got people walking on stilts and jugglers and goodness knows what. There's always something to see to keep you amused on the promenade deck. My favourite time on the promenade deck would have to be like this little fellow here, is really early in the morning, grab a coffee and just wait and watch the ship waking up. My favourite time on the cruise on these Royal Caribbeans. Now, another great thing about the promenade decks is that they have the option of these cabins up here. Now, these cabins run the entire length of the promenade deck, and they are called the promenade cabins for obvious reasons. Now, instead of looking out into nothing, these are inside cabins that basically look down onto the promenade. So if you are someone who absolutely loves people watching and you prefer to be step back and watching from a distance, these cabins are the hottest property on the ship. So I would recommend to you that you take deck 8. It is a little bit quieter on deck 8, and if you want to book one of these promenade cabins, make that request at the time of booking. Just a little bit quieter and still has all the buzz of the promenade, but you just don't get that intense noise when you're down here on deck 6. Again, absolutely gorgeous. The cabins. Now, cabins on Royal Caribbean aren't the biggest cabins in the world, but you know what? They've got plenty of storage, the bathrooms are great, and they're nice and clean, and the beds are comfy. So what more could you want? Don't expect to have a party in your room on Royal Caribbean, because you won't. They're built for 2 or 3 or 4, and that's pretty much it. So if you're like me, you don't spend a lot of time in your cabins, then certainly the cabins are more than adequate, and as I said, quite clean, tidy, with loads of storage. You have these royal family suites. I want you to consider, if you're travelling as a family unit, that maybe an extended family unit is great for those babysitting nights. Perhaps if you're taking an older grand couple with you, maybe they can look after the kiddies as you have a night out. I think there's 3 bedrooms in this royal family suite, so it's certainly a big cabin. This is more apartment size, and it can work out a little bit cheaper rather than doing the adjoining cabins. So consider that if you're travelling in an extended family group. There's also the junior suites. These ones are obviously most popular for honeymooners and people celebrating milestone cruises. So if you're having an anniversary or a birthday on board, or it's your honeymoon, then it's the junior suites that jump out of the pack for cabin choices there. And the ever popular ocean view cabin. These offer great value for people. They give you that bit of sunlight and you can see what's going on outside. And again, lots of sort of room in there, plenty of room in there for a couple of people in a cabin. So my favourite cabin's the ocean view cabin's gorgeous. Dining options. Now you have about 15 different dining options on board the Explorer of the Sea, and you've got the Windjammer buffet. Now this is a masterpiece. This little Windjammer buffet needs to cater for 4,000 people throughout the course of the cruise, and as you can imagine, breakfast, lunch and dinner are where it's all happening. Now my advice to you on these big mega cruises is to stagger your meal times. So rather than getting there at 7 o'clock and being confronted with an enormous crowd of people where everyone's wanting to eat at the same time, have a late lunch and head down into the buffet at around about 8:30, 9 o'clock. Everything's still fresh and lovely. You won't have the crowds and your experience in the buffet will be much, much nicer than if you hit at family dining times. So try and stagger around those times. The kiddies are on cruises. It doesn't matter if you eat a bit later. Get in there and enjoy it outside the normal dining times. Same goes for the main dining room. Try and book the later seating or the earlier seating. That way you'll just get a little bit more space and a little bit more room. So be smart when it comes to the mega cruises. Make sure that you understand that 4,000 people is a small city or a small town for most of you. So bear in mind that trying to provide all of the great service that Royal Caribbean are known for does have its challenges when it comes to feeding time on these mega cruises. So be smart and plan ahead. Johnny Rockets, famous on Royal Caribbean. American style hamburgers, American style hot dogs. This place gets packed at lunchtime. Eat outside dining times and you'll be fine. Euro Italian, as I said, there's 15 odd dining options on board this thing. So this is a Euro Italian restaurant. This is really popular. If you want to book a table, and you need to, on these with these specialty restaurants, make sure that you do it when you first get on the ship with the what's he called, the maitre d'. Book straight away, and that way you'll be ensured of getting one of these wonderful table and window seats for a special anniversary dinner. Bars, love the bars on cruise ships. These are a couple of my favourites on board Royal Caribbean. The Crown and Kettle. This is in the promenade, so you can sit there with a pint and just watch the world go by. Absolutely fantastic way to spend a lazy Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday morning if you're that way inclined. Schooner Bar. This is where the karaoke and the trivia happens during the day and a night time, and it's a great meet-up bar. Certainly fantastic little bar for meetups and just an all-time. This is where you go to have a laugh, basically. The Aquarium Bar. This is a beautiful, sexy late-night bar, and as you would imagine, it's themed in the aquarium theme. Cocktails down here and just a nice place to sit and just relax. And of course, my favourite, the Chamber, which is basically a disco nightclub. And if you love, love, love disco like I do, then get yourself down here. You can even take some dress-up clothes and head on down to the disco heaven and dance the night away. It's got all the lasers and all the disco lights and everything you would expect in a fabulous disco, and that's the Chamber. The casino, again, Royal Caribbean do casinos in a big way. This one has 300 slot machines or pokie machines. You've also got your table games like your baccarat, your blackjack, obviously roulette and other little games in there as well. So that's a real hub of entertainment of a night time if you like a bit of a flutter. Some dancing. They do this a lot on Royal Caribbean, just random dancing. There'll be a little band that will be playing. It might be, this one is actually some swing time dancing, and basically people get up, have a bit of a dance, and as you can see, it's pretty popular, and everyone gets on down there and has a bit of a dance. Lots of different types of styles of dancing, really popular and a lot of fun. For the fitness fanatics, we've got running tracks on board, so if you want to run off a few of those Johnny Rocket burgers, then get up onto the running track. Beautiful early in the morning. The main pool, there's entertainment that goes on here all hours of the day and night. Happy days. And also, the Flow Rider. This is famous on Royal Caribbean, and this is on all of their ships, and it is now coming on to the Explorer of the Seas. Once they do that refurb, it will involve this as well. So the Flow Rider, it doesn't matter if you're not great at this or you don't even want to have a go. It is fantastic fun to watch, and fair play to these boys and girls that get up there and make it look so easy. Ice skating rinks. They do shows of a night time. It's all in lights and looks pretty fantastic. And you can also head on down there and do some ice skating during the day as well, on the rink. So another development for the Royal Caribbean. Rock climbing, you know what, never been my thing, but a lot of people do love it. As you can see, it's a fairly popular activity on board ships. People just love climbing rock faces on a cruise ship. Go figure. But there it is, it's available, and if you're into that, then it's certainly one of the biggest walls at sea. Kids clubs. Now, there are various different kids clubs on board the Explorer, of various ages. So depending on what age your kiddies are, will depend on where they'll go for the day. Now, Royal Caribbean will keep your kiddies absolutely flat out busy all day long. But you do need to bear in mind that this is a kids club, it's not a kids babysitting service. So I say that mindful of the fact, as a mother and having children and having kids on holidays, please, just a small caveat, I will remind you that it is not a babysitting club, it is a kids club, and they will keep your kiddies occupied all day on end. But you will need to, at some point, connect back with your kids and plan the following day's activities. If you're looking for babysitting facilities on board, then Royal Caribbean have those as well, and there's a small charge for babysitting for your kiddies. So if you're interested, excuse me, check out some details. I'll just have a drink. A night at the theatre. Now, Royal Caribbean at the moment are featuring the Jersey Boys as one of their shows on board, and I think anyone who's listening to this that has seen the Jersey Boys, certainly a world-class show. We're not sure yet at this stage as to what the entertainment will be on the Explorer of the Seas, but expect that calibre. So that again is included in the cost of your tickets, so look out for some world-class shows on the Explorer. There's a library for some quiet time. You've also got some internet up here that you have on the ships. Now, just a quickie on that one, I would recommend, I don't use the internet on cruise ships. For me, going on a cruise means hanging up the phone, logging off, and just getting away from everything and everybody. But if I must do some postings, I will wait until I get ashore, find an internet cafe and do it from there. You're under the mercy of the satellites on board a cruise ship, and it can make internet a little bit slow and sluggish, and I did have one gentleman say to me that it took him nearly 20 minutes to send an email. That to me sounds a little bit too hard and a little bit like a waste of a good 20 minutes. So they do have it there if you want it. It will cost you quite a good deal of money to use, but if you really must, it's available. The gym and spa centre, this is for adults only, and doesn't that look pretty lovely? So, as I said, they have all the spa treatments. I think there's like 50 different spa treatments and things that you can have. There's hairdressers on board. You can get your nails done and everything. So, it's all there on the Explorer of the Seas. A bit of top secret stuff. Back in the good old days, you used to be able to book cruises of the bridge or tours of the bridge, and small groups would go through and have a look at the bridge and hang around with the captain for half an hour or so. Most of the cruise lines now have stopped doing that. Some of the smaller ships will do it, but the bigger ones do not. So, oh, excuse me. So I thought I'd put in a picture of the bridge. This is the Explorer of the Seas, and this is the technology that will guide you around the island safely. So you're in good hands up there, all the technology, all the bells and whistles that you'd expect on a ship this size. And on the subject of technology, here is something that is quite amazing that the Explorer of the Seas will be bringing into Australia. It is called the virtual balcony cabin, and basically what this is, it's an inside cabin with a virtual balcony, and that's an LED screen which will show you the virtual balcony. Now, I haven't actually seen one of these, and I'm really looking forward to having a look at the Explorer's virtual balconies when they come in here to Australia. But basically what this has done is it's created the inside cabin. It's given them a virtual balcony, so that, because a lot of people feel a little bit claustrophobic and that they're maybe a little bit dark and dingy, the inside cabins, which you would expect for a cabin that's inside the ship. However, with the virtual balcony, it gives the impression of a little bit more space and less claustrophobic feeling. So, as I said, I'll keep you posted on that one, but that is seriously some pretty cool technology that these cruise ships are bringing in. The ports of call for the Explorer of the Seas will be the Bay of Islands in New Zealand. They'll be doing round trips, so you'll leave Sydney, cruise around New Zealand and come back into Sydney. You've got the Milford Sound, of course, you'll head around there. They're heading into Fiji and of course over into Noumea and the other South Pacific. And they'll predominantly, the Explorer of the Seas will feature mostly 11 to 14 night itineraries, and that will be over to New Zealand and into the South Pacific. It will be based in Sydney, and there will be some repositioning cruises on the Explorer of the Seas, and that will mean that around about April 2016 she'll head across to Western Australia into Perth, and she'll sail up into Singapore, and then she'll make her way to wherever she's going after that. So if you like a good repositioning cruise, then the Explorer of the Seas, keep a lookout for itineraries for the repositioning. There will be shorter cruises available around the Australian waters, and we call them taster cruises. If you're not quite certain that 4,000 people is your thing, then go on a taster cruise and have a look to see what it has to offer. These are predominantly sometimes 2, 3, 4 day cruises, and they'll cruise around Australian waters, no passports required, and you can get a feel of what it's like to be on one of the big mega ships. I would recommend, if you haven't been on a mega ship before, I would certainly recommend a taster cruise for anyone, just to see whether or not it suits them and whether or not they like having all those people, or whether or not you're not noticing them. I have clients that have travelled on small intimate ships that would not go on a mega cruise, and yet I have a lot of customers that book all the time the mega cruises. They just love it, that there's just non-stop everything on board. So it's sort of like New York on the water. So whatever's your thing, try a taster cruise. Itineraries and cruise costs will be released to the Australian market on the 29th of April 2014. So just in a couple of weeks, we'll be getting the itinerary and the cost. Now, based on what we're looking at for the other cruise lines, I would suggest for a 12 to 14 night cruise, the prices would be based on around about $1,500 for an inside cabin per person, to around about $2,500 per person in a suite. So certainly the costs are there. It certainly gives you good value for money, remembering that all your meals and your entertainment is all included in the cost of that ticket, and you're just on a remarkable cruise ship with so much entertainment that's provided free of charge with your ticket there. It's certainly a great family value holiday. So there we have it, the Explorer of the Seas, the Royal Caribbean Explorer of the Seas. Excuse me, the biggest megaliner to arrive into the Australian cruise market. She's cruising in for the Australian cruise season on November 2015 to April 2016. Keep an eye out for the itinerary. If you want to make bookings or you want any information about the Explorer of the Seas or any of the other great ships that we have here in Australia, please contact us here at Southern Cross Cruises. For bookings, you can call me on that number there, or you can email me on that address, or you can buzz over to Facebook and find us on Facebook, Southern Cross Cruises, and connect with us that way. So I hope you've enjoyed our little tour of the Explorer of the Seas. I look forward to making a booking. Remember, there is one thing I want to remind you of, that this ship is coming into Australia for the Christmas season. Now, no one does Christmas like Royal Caribbean. It's all the bells and whistles that you would expect on a Christmas cruise, all the food, all the Christmas carols, Santa running around giving presents to kiddies. It is just mega. Royal Caribbean do Christmas like none other. Check out the costs for a Christmas on the Explorer of the Seas during Christmas, December 2015. Get your family together, get your bookings in the system, head across to the South Pacific for some beach cricket while you're travelling on this mega cruiser. Make it something to remember. Until next time, it's been Heather Blythe from Southern Cross Cruises. I look forward to chatting with you in relation to Explorer of the Seas and any other cruises that you may be looking at. Hooroo and bon voyage.